Ladies and gentlemen, I do not have to introduce you to this lady. This is a gem in our industry. You've seen so many great performers, but this is really the diamond that glitters no matter what year, what time. Darlene Love, ladies and gentlemen.
Thank you.
Boy, you look prettier and prettier every time I see you. I'm telling you, it's something else. You know that's not her real name. You know that, don't you? You didn't know that? Tell him your real name.
My real name at the time that I met Phil Spector was Darlene Wright. That's my maiden name. Darlene Wright.
And you have a sister.
And I have a sister who was with the lead singer of the Honeycombs. One adds, Miss Edna Wright.
Yeah. Now, how do we change the name?
Well, Phil Spector did love gospel music. And there was a gospel singer named Dorothy Norwood Love. She's a gospel singer. And Phil said, "Do you like the last name Love?" And I went, "Okay." Why not? But as we grew in the business and the Darlene Love name started getting very popular, I went to court and had it legalized. Mine, because knowing Phil Spector, I could just see me singing somewhere going, "You can't use that name. That's my name."
You know, Dar, did you ever think back then when you were doing backup for some of the wonderful artists, and then when you were with the Blossoms on Shindig with the Righteous Brothers, did you ever think that your career would ever be at the height right now? I mean, going from a background singer, you are a major, and I'm not just saying this, you are a major single artist, ladies and gentlemen, who draws at every venue. Don't you agree on that? I mean, how do you feel about coming from that world to where you are now?
Well, it wasn't easy because being a background singer was actually fun. And especially all the people I got to meet. And they didn't treat me like a backup singer. They always treated me like an equal, like, they're equals. But the reason why it was hard for me to transfer over, not that I didn't, still had the voice, it's because I got too comfortable. You can get comfortable. These people were paying me a fortune. Like, especially when I was working for people like Nancy Sinatra,
Right.
and Sammy Davis, and even, the Righteous Brothers and all the people that I worked, they wanted to take us on the road. So it really got good. The money really got good. You don't have to pay for anything. They pay for your rooms, airfare, everything. So I said, I'm going to just cross my legs and sit back here and make all this money. And what really talked me into it? I used to date Bill Medley, one of the Righteous Brothers, many years ago. And he said, I've always hear you every now and then saying, what, I ought to try it. I ought to just try singing solo. And he said, well, when are you going to try? It's either now or never. So if I help you put a show together and get you some singers and musicians, would you do it? I say, sure, I'll give it a try. And I've been singing solo ever since.
Where did you do the first show? Was it in L.A.? Or?
It was in Los Angeles. Actually, it was great because Bill owned a club in Orange County.
Oh.
So that's where I did my first first show. And then my second show was at the Roxy because I knew Lou Adler.
And Elmer.
Yeah. And they owned, Lou Adler had the Mamas and the Papas. He had all those, the Jan and Dean, and we did the background for all of those.
He was married to Annette Fabre.
Yes.
Right.
And you know what? They still, well, let me see, are they? I know they've never divorced.
No.
And I asked him why. He said, why not?
Now, so you discover that you're going to do an act, and the Phil Spector years. How does that happen?
As a background singer, Phil Spector had a partner. His name was Lester Sill.
Who was a genius.
And he lived in Los Angeles, and he did a lot of producing of a lot of records, too. The records that never made them, we don't remember those. We did a lot of those, too.
Very much responsible with Jerry Lieber and Mike Stoller for the Coasters.
Yes, exactly. Anyway, Phil was interested in recording He's a Rebel. He was in New York, and the story about the Christmas is it's probably been made up so many times, but it's a very simple story. There were 13 and 14-year-old girls going to school, and their parents went, you ain't flying nowhere with somebody I don't know. And that was the reason why they didn't come to California
Right.
to record He's a Rebel.
Right.
But I was there as a background singer, and he just hired me to do it.
You know, he stole that record.
I tell that story every night. Did you
Tell
guys
them.
see me when I tell y'all the story the other night?
You know what? He's a rebel? Go ahead, tell him.
Yeah, it was a lady already who had already recorded.
Carr.
Vicky Carr. She had recorded it in New York. But the thing about it was, Phil Spector owned his own label, and she had to wait her turn on her label. When it's time for you to release your record. So Phil just flew to California, recorded it. Within a week, it was out, and they hadn't even put theirs out yet, and they hadn't a date or nothing. So by the time they decided to put it out, our record was already climbing the chart. So it was actually too late.
Written by Gene Pitney.
Gene Pitney. The only thing, and that saved me.
Why?
Because Phil didn't write it. He didn't have no control over it.
Oh, wow.
Right, the only song I recorded, he did not have any control over it.
How did Lala Brooks, who was the lead singer of the Crystals,
Right.
feel when you became the lead singer of the Crystals, all the rest of the songs?
Well, it was the same thing. It was the same thing about since they had He's a Rebel with my voice, Phil Spector wanted the next record that was going to be released to sound the same way. And so he recorded me on the next two songs.
What were they?
He's Sure the Boy I Love.
Love it.
And wait, Do Run Run.
Yes.
But the story behind Do Run Run is he took my voice off because me and Phil got into a big battle over money and contracts and things. So, but we hadn't finished the record, but we had already did the background, the Blossoms.
Yep.
Because by that time you could sing the backgrounds and put the music on before the lead voice came on. And he didn't take our voices off of the background.
Right.
But he put Lala's voice on top of mine.
Now, that's something I never knew.
Ah!
You know, it's funny because Dionne Warwick's first record, Don't Make Me Over, she did background on that and then sang lead. And what happened, Florence Greenberg did not want to release Don't Make Me Over. So she went into the studio with Tommy Hunt.
Yes.
And Tommy Hunt had the version. But Burt Bacharach called me and said, Geeter, she's not going to release Dionne. I said, give me the record, man. In those days, as you know, if you had the freedom, you put the record on the turntable and you just play it.
But everybody didn't have the freedom. You did.
I still do.
Right.
But, you know, it's got to be such I mean, I look at your career, and we go back 100 years. She is the most charming, warm human being. How many kids?
I have 3 sons and 1 daughter. I have 6 grandsons, one great granddaughter, 1 great grandson, and 1 granddaughter.
What do they look at you when they see you singing? What do they think?
Well, you're funny. You guys remember Jackie, the exercise man?
Oh, Jack LaLanne.
Jack LaLanne, right? Well, I used to work out with Jack LaLanne when he had his white dog.
Yeah.
And my kids would see me on television, but we used to tape everything. And I'd be in the floor working out with Jack LaLanne, and they would wonder, how can I be on television? And I was right there doing Jack LaLanne. Those were the funny stories. But the reason they really love all of our music, my oldest son is 57.
Oh, my God.
So he came up with all that music. So they all my kids just love our music. Matter of fact, once they start playing Christmas records, they play Christmas almost into the middle of the year.
The greatest Christmas album, though, was you. I mean, and every year, the Letterman Show. And I think that's probably one of the, right, folks?
Thank you.
And I think that exposure, but more than that, you were in a wonderful motion picture, Lethal Weapon.
Yes.
Do you remember that motion picture, ladies and gentlemen? How did that happen?
Singing in New York. I tell you, the move to New York from California was a blessing, which I never thought. I had worked many years as a backup singer for a lot of singers in New York, but I never thought I would move to New York. But the show I did in Los Angeles at Lou's Club, the Roxy,
Right.
Bruce Springsteen and Steve Van Zandt was in that show. And Stevie said, "You need to move to New York." And I said, "Oh, you crazy. Nobody knows me in New York. Why should I move to New York?" Boy, was I surprised that I had so many fans back east who never saw me because they used to think I was a figment of Phil Spector's imagination because nobody had ever seen me.
Well, Phil Spector was almost like Billy Ward and the Dominoes. He would never acknowledge he was singing lead. Jackie Wilson or Clyde McPhatter or Eugene Muffet was always Billy Ward and the Dominoes. It was a Phil Spector production.
Exactly.
Right?
Exactly. One of the first producers that actually started really putting his name on the records and stealing royalties because he told everybody that he was doing the background too.
Wow. Amazing. Listen, we know Phil. I mean, his vision, though, was amazing, even though he was crazy a little bit, but he had a vision. He had a vision for you, Phillies Records. You go to New York City. You're discovered by my buddy Steve Van Zandt. And by the way, Stevie Van Zandt and Bruce Springsteen love this lady, and have been so instrumental on letting people in our industry know how good this lady is. So Stevie says you come to New York, and now you're going to become an actress?
Did, and I became to New York. And the famous club, Bottom Line. Everybody worked the Bottom Line in New York. And Stevie got me. He said, "If you come, I'll get you some jobs." He got me a job at the Bottom Line and the Peppermint Lounge, which is no more. And I started singing there, and people found out that Darlene Love was in town and working. They didn't believe it. So therefore, they came to see for themselves. So every night at the Bottom Line, I was there for 2 weeks. And we did, Alan Pepper, we did 2 shows a night.
Yeah.
Anyway, they came to see me, and they couldn't believe I was really Darlene Love until they actually saw me on stage. And that was in 1982, and I've been there ever since.
Wow. So, it takes one person. That happened with Don Rickles. Don Rickles was a comedian, and he went out to the Slate Brothers in L.A., and Sinatra caught him. And Sinatra said, "You got to see this guy." Humphrey Bogart wasn't there. Gary Cooper wasn't there. Lauren Bacall wasn't there. And that's how it happened when you're seen on stage, right?
Only takes one. And then, too, when my life has been it's had up and downs, but thank God it had more ups than downs. Because Stevie, I did the 25th anniversary of the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame.
Right.
And there wasn't anybody that was on that show that wasn't already in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. I wasn't in there yet.
Don't you remember?
Yes. You, Stevie, it was quite a few. It was about 4 people. You were one of them that really turned the tide for me getting into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame because Phil Spector was a voter. And every time they would try to vote me in, he would have a fit and wouldn't vote me in. So between the Geeter, Bruce, Stevie, and little Stevie Wonder,
Yep.
they all said, "We're going to get you in one way or another." And they did in 2011.
She was nominated every year, 5 years in a row.
Yes.
Finally, and you were magnificent. Your humility that night, you were so humble. You thanked everyone. And you even said, "I even thank you, Phil Spector, for making all those records."
I did, because if it wasn't for those records, I wouldn't be here today. So I give him his props, even though he was a nut. There's a lot of famous nuts running around, and he's one of them, but that's okay. He did me well then. And the biggest surprise right now, it just happened a couple of months ago.
I love it. Good. Yes, good.
There's an act in Congress called the 1972 Act. I don't know if any of you all know about it. I didn't even know about it until about 5 or 6 years ago. Congress passed a bill back 20 years ago that said anything that was recorded before 1972, you could not get royalties. Now, who was that helping? Not just Phil, but all the rest of the money people.
Yeah.
And so what happened for the last 5 or 6 years, they had me to go to Congress, and I went to Congress. That was so funny.
Yeah.
I knocking on folks' door and said, "Hey, y'all need to vote for us." So what they did, the House last year voted for us, everybody. And then this year,
They passed.
the Senate voted for us. They did. But now there was one big hurdle to get over. The president had to sign. So I just fell on my knees and said, "You got it. Come on. Come on, Lord. Get it." And he did. He signed it into act. So now everybody that recorded before 1972, they're all getting their royalties.
Yep.
Yes.
You know, that's also a very interesting point, because when you were a kid, when you were recording, when these artists were recording, you knew nothing about the money end of it, did you?
No.
I mean, you did it for the love of it. Back then, it was the lawyers with the record companies that told the artist what to do. Today, it's different, though.
Baby.
Today, it's different. Today, the artist has their own lawyers, and they tell the record companies and the producers what they want to do.
The other thing about the record companies, they're not that powerful anymore. You know, there's not a whole lot of record companies. You had Beyonce, who just put her record out and didn't tell nobody they put it out. She put it online and sold millions.
Yeah, yeah.
So she keeps it all.
Yeah.
Which is right. It should be. I think agents and people should get their fare for working what they do with their jobs, but not take everything and give you 2 cents. That's what most of us were getting off of each one of our records that sold. 2 cents.
Yeah.
And that was for the whole group. It was 3 of us, the Blossoms. That was a penny apiece. And that happened to everybody.
And they would deduct the cost of the session, the cost of the clothes, the cost of everything they did, so you got nothing.
Not a thing. But you know what? All I can say is hang in there, and right will always come forth. You just have to be a little more patient.
Well, that's the
and
right
have
name.
a lot of people on your side.
That's the right name,
That's
right?
it. Hey, right.
That's it. That's right. All of the things that you do. Oh, by the way, she's going. Do you remember a wonderful TV show called To Tell the Truth? This is the new Tell the Truth.
After I leave here, I'll be home for about 2 or 3 days, and then I fly to Los Angeles to do. They've already got a few in the can already. It's not coming on until next. When is the time change over? It'll be coming on To Tell the Truth. And I said, well, y'all better be careful who you guys are going to get, because a lot of people might not know me personally.
But they know the music.
But they know the judges knows. I can't be 3 ladies go up there and say, I'm Darlene Love. No, I'm Darlene Love. Well, I know who the real Darlene Love is. So, and I told them that because I've already filmed my part. So it'll be on sometime in February or somewhere around in there. But they have to put a lot in the can to get it started. It's something like 13 weeks.
Yeah, they give them 13
have to put
weeks.
in the can. So
Yeah. Do you know who? Do you remember the host of Tell the Truth?
who?
No, that was Beat the Clock.
No, Beat the Clock.
That was Beat the Clock.
She's married to Betty White. Yes, Alan Ludden.
You threw the greatest line about Betty White. Can't tell you the line we spoke about Betty White. How old is she now?
I think she's 80, 90 something now.
93?
93? Hey.
She's not too far from my age.
Our age together.
Yeah. But, you know, it's funny because when you see this woman work, man, she hits on stage, and, man, you never lost that feel, the soul of gospel. Really? That's where it all comes from. Gospel.
Yes.
Gospel, man.
But you know what? Most of all of us, even a lot of our white counterpartners, all of them grew up in church some kind of way, whether it was Catholic, Methodist, Presbyterian, whatever it was. But most of us came up in church, and which was great. But for me, I grew up in church because I didn't have no choice. My father was the pastor. And we all went to church. Our friends went to church. Our neighbors, everybody went to church. So we already had fun. So we thought it was great learning how. And that's why I love background so much, because of the choirs. And you had to sing harmony, which was always so great.
Well, you all know the documentary. What was the documentary?
Yes.
We had dinner that night when they showed it, remember, in Philadelphia?
Yeah.
And I looked at that documentary, man, and that nailed the true stars behind the scenes, such as Darlene, that supplied and did all. Listen, Dionne Warwick with her sister Dee Dee and her cousin Sissy before even become major stars.
That's right.
They were
They
doing
were on the East Coast. The Blossoms were on the West Coast.
right, and that kicked off a whole brand new career.
Yes.
David Letterman kicked off a whole brand new career. But now your act that you have is a very classy act, other than just doing the standards that you do. That was what you were thinking of doing?
Yeah, because I worked with Elvis Presley in 1968, which made us such good friends. Our kindred spirit is because Elvis loved gospel music. And by me being a gospel singer and coming up with gospel medley, and there's a great great story that Elvis tells about gospel music. In the South, where blacks went to their church and white went to their churches, Elvis said they used to have what we call night service. They don't have it no more. I guess they got too rowdy. Anyway, they would have night service, and we would sing what they call praise songs. So a lot of gospel singing would be done in the evening. And Elvis said he used to go by this one black church around 8 o'clock on Sunday night and just stand at the window and listen to the songs. And what I loved about Elvis, the story that I love, is that he won 3 Grammys, and he won them all for gospel music.
Yeah. You're so right. A kindred spirit.
Yeah.
Most artists, and this is what's so great for you people, you see these wonderful artists in a different light. You see them on stage, but then you see them as they are. And Elvis really was such a kindred. He was in awe. When Fats Domino was a dear friend, and Fats was playing in Las Vegas, and Fats said, "Gator, come on, come on." So I went to the Flamingo, and we went backstage after, and Fats was sweating, and there's a knock on the door. And Fats say to valet, "Come here," and valet comes up, whispers in Fats' ear, and Fats says, "Come on in, come on in." Now my back is to the door, and in walks Elvis. And he goes to Fats, and Fats says, "Hey, Elvis, how you all doing?" Elvis says, "Mr. Domino, you know I'm a big fan of yours. We met many times." Fats said, "Yeah, well, come on, sit on down." So he says, "I want you to meet my friend, the Geeter." He says, "Mr. Geeter, it's so nice to meet you." I said, "Mr. Presley, you don't have to call me Mr." He said, "I call all the people Mr."
Yes,
That's how he was, an amazing human being.
He was so great that when we did the 1968 special, they wanted the songs to have a gospel feeling in the gospel segment that he did in the special. So that's how the Blossoms ended up getting the job to sing the record. But then after Elvis got to know us, he said, "We want to put them in the special."
Right.
So when we're walking down the stairway, I was just so humbled that he was just that type of person that he wanted us to be in the special with him.
That's the one that brought him really back, as a matter of fact.
Yeah.
That was the big, all in black?
Yes.
Yeah. It was directed by Steve Binder. Steve Binder was the director who also did the Mike Douglas show.
Yes.
He did the Mike Douglas show back then. You see, you're hearing things, folks, that you will never, ever hear ever again about this lovely lady. You have any questions that you would like to ask Darlene? Yes, that lady in the back. Yeah, that's you. Come on, come up. So you can be seen on TV. Come on.
Come on up here.
Come on, hurry up. Come on.
I just wanted to say, when we were young girls in 6th and 7th grade, we idolized Shelley Fabre. The Donna Reed show.
Yes.
And she was interviewed once, and Johnny Angel was, the big song. And she said on an interview that song wouldn't have been anything without Darlene Love's voice. And we did not know that all these years. So
yeah, we did the background.
she
on
said
that.
you had the voice of an angel, so that was.
Johnny Angel.
And she said, yeah. And she said she could not sing, that you carried it for her. So.
Oh, bless her.
Johnny Angel.
Johnny Angel.
Shelley Fabre.
Yes.
Who was married to Lou Adler.
Yes.
All right. Now, movies, TV, now a big TV series that you're doing, Letterman. What would you like to really do that you haven't done?
I would like to sing with Barbara Streisand.
Whoa.
It's always been one of those bucket lists. And that's something I would like to do. And, I hear if I put it out long enough, the wind will take it to her. Some little bird would go and whisper, you know, Darlene Love would love to sing with you.
Well,
Yeah,
she
always.
sang with Neil Diamond.
Yeah,
She sang with the Bee Gees.
yeah.
So
Donna Summers.
that's right. So hey, I think you
And her
wish
voice is still there, babes. I
Listen.
mean, every note is still crisp.
your wish may come true.
Hey,
You never know what.
you never know.
You never
'Cause
know.
I have a story I'd like to tell her. I guess about 35 years ago, she did a show in Central Park. And it was in the summertime. And she ended her show with a song that just knocked me out because I couldn't believe anybody would sing this song in the summertime, Silent Night. And how appropriate. It had gotten to be evening, late in the evening. And when you think about that sound, it doesn't have to be a Christmas song. We just sing that song at Christmas time. But when she did that, that was it for me. I got to sing with her.
All right. All right. You know, I just thought of something. When you were doing all of the crystals, then you became your own star with Today I Met the Boy I'm going to marry, right?
Mm-hmm.
How did Phil allow that to happen? Because he now loses the sound of the crystals with your voice. Did you say, look, I want to be a single artist?
Well, you know what? Every time when He Sure the Boy I Love came, when I recorded that one, that was supposed to be the first Darlene Love record. But between the crystals, I recorded as Bobby Sox and the Blue Jeans.
Yes.
And so that was in between the crystals.
Zippity-doo-dah.
Yeah, that was in between the crystals and the Ronettes.
Right.
So here I am, and then it was almost like he recorded me when he found a song that he thought was right for me.
Mm-hmm.
And that when Barry and Cynthia brought him that song, Today I Met the Boy I'm Gonna Marry.
That was a top 10 record, man. No way he's not going to keep on recording you as Darlene Love.
Right,
You know that?
right.
Wow.
Well, the other story about my contract finally ran out with Phil. And another label I had really wanted to get on was Philadelphia International.
Well, Kenny Gamble and Leon Huff, right.
I got we got in touch with them, my people did, and they agreed they wanted to record me. And I went there, we signed all the papers, dotted all the I's, crossed all the T's. We thought, you know, do it right so we won't get hung up again. And I was there for about 3 or 4 days in their office and at the hotel learning these new songs that I was going to go in the studio and record. And I get this call from Kenny Gamble, and he said, I need you to come into the office. I said, okay, because I'd been there like 3 or 4 days, so that was nothing unusual. And he said, something has happened, and we don't really know how to tell you this, but in a nice way, he said, we sold your contract back to Phil Spector.
Whoa. Well, let me tell you, he's not around. He's around, but he ain't around. You still are. Ladies and gentlemen, what do you think of this young lady? Let me tell you, without a doubt, the finest young lady. I love you. Darlene Love, ladies and gentlemen.
Thank you.